The bell above the door of the Daily Grind diner jingled, a sound usually lost in the clatter of plates and the hiss of the grill. But today it seemed to punctuate the snickering from behind the counter. "Look at that," whispered Sarah, a young waitress with a cascade of bright pink hair, loud enough for the whole staff to hear, though supposedly not for the person she mocked. "Looks like she lost a bet. Or maybe she's just that unlucky." Her eyes flicked towards Eleanor, the oldest waitress, moving slowly but steadily between tables, her scalp smooth and exposed beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. A few customers at the counter chuckled, others pointed discreetly. Eleanor didn't flinch outwardly. Her expression remained placid, her movements measured. She simply wiped down a counter, her knuckles white, a quiet fortress against the casual cruelty that had become as much a part of the diner's routine as the morning coffee rush. Have you ever witnessed someone being utterly dismissed, judged solely on an appearance that hides a profound depth of character or a difficult struggle? Have you seen silent strength meet open scorn? If you believe true worth is often invisible and deserves honor regardless of presentation, type respect in the comments below. Eleanor Vance had served countless cups of coffee, flipped thousands of pancakes, and carried trays heavy with the weight of breakfasts and dinners for 20 years at the Daily Grind. Before that, the trays she carried held very different things. Medical supplies, bandages, the weight of human lives in her hands under circumstances most people could only imagine in nightmares. But that life was hidden, buried beneath layers of quiet humility and the uniform of her current profession. A faded, ill-fitting waitress uniform that did nothing to betray the disciplined steel in her spine. She was bald now, not by choice, but by necessity, the ongoing fight against a quiet enemy within her own body. This fight, relentless and exhausting, added a new layer of difficulty to her already demanding job. Yet, she came in every day, punctual, reliable, never complaining, enduring the whispers and the pitying stares. Mark, the manager, a man whose ambition extended only as far as the diner's quarterly profits, saw Eleanor as a liability. Slow, old, and now, in his estimation, unsightly. He tolerated her because she was dependable and rarely called in sick, but he assigned her the worst shifts, the slowest sections, and turned a blind eye to the open disrespect she faced from younger staff members like Sarah and Kevin, the cook's assistant, who found endless amusement in her appearance. "Hey, cue ball! Table 7 needs more napkins." Kevin would yell from the kitchen door, and Sarah would giggle, running a hand over her own full head of hair. Eleanor would simply nod, retrieve the napkins, her eyes holding a flicker of something, not anger, but a deep, weary resilience. It was a look that contained volumes, stories carved into the lines around her eyes, but no one bothered to read them. They saw only an old, bald woman, a relic in a fast-paced world. She wasn't just battling cancer. She was battling invisibility, the cruel erasure that comes with age and perceived weakness. But Eleanor Vance was anything but weak. Her silence wasn't submission. It was a conscious choice, a different kind of discipline forged in fires they could never comprehend. She needed this job. She needed the routine, the small income, the feeling of being useful. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The tension in the diner was a low hum, usually manageable, a static Eleanor had learned to tune out. But today it felt sharper. A group of teenagers were at a booth, loud and obnoxious. One of them, emboldened by his friends, pointed towards Eleanor as she walked past. "Dude, check it out," he snickered, his voice carrying. "Looks like Mr. Clean is serving coffee now." His friends erupted in laughter. Sarah and Kevin exchanged smirks from behind the counter. Mark was busy counting receipts, pointedly ignoring the disturbance. Eleanor felt the familiar prickle of shame, a feeling that, despite decades of service and sacrifice, these trivial moments could still sting. She kept walking, her back straight, gripping her tray tighter. Just get through the shift, she told herself, the mantra that had seen her through worse places, worse moments. This wasn't mortar fire. This wasn't seeing someone die in your arms. This was just smallness. But the smallness was relentless, eroding dignity one comment, one glance at a time. She delivered coffee to a different table, her hands steady despite the tremor building inside her. She noticed a young man sitting alone at another booth. He wore a crisp, dark green military uniform, sharp and formal, an ROTC cadet, she guessed, or perhaps just home on leave. He looked uncomfortable, his eyes scanning the room. He saw the teenagers, saw Sarah and Kevin's reactions, saw Eleanor. Their eyes met for a fleeting second. His face held no mockery, only a flicker of something Eleanor couldn't quite place. Recognition? Sympathy? He quickly looked away, but not before Eleanor saw him subtly shift in his seat, his posture becoming more rigid. A quiet observer. Then, the door jingled again, but this time, the sound seemed to carry a different weight. A man entered, tall and imposing, radiating an aura of quiet authority. He wore a highly decorated military dress uniform, medals glinting, stars on his shoulders. General. A hush fell over the diner, not just the staff, but the customers too. Everyone turned to look. He surveyed the room, his gaze sharp and assessing. Eleanor, her back turned to the door, felt a strange sense of unease. The general's eyes landed on the young man in uniform at the booth. A slow smile spread across the general's face. He walked directly towards him. Liam, the general said, his voice deep and resonant, cutting through the silence. Ready. The young man, Liam, stood up instantly, snapping to attention. Yes, sir. The general nodded. Then his eyes swept across the room again, presumably taking in the environment where the cadet had been waiting. His gaze paused. It landed on Eleanor, who had just turned from the table she was serving, holding her empty tray. For a long moment, the general simply stared at her. The air thickened. Mark, the manager, who had scurried out from behind the counter, stood awkwardly by the door, ready to greet the distinguished visitor. Sarah and Kevin froze, their earlier smirks wiped clean from their faces. The teenagers who had been laughing only moments before were now wide-eyed and silent. The general's expression shifted. The easy smile he had worn for Liam vanished, replaced by something unreadable, a mix of surprise, concern, and then unmistakable recognition. He took a step towards Eleanor, then another, deviating from his path to Liam's booth. Every eye in the diner followed him. Eleanor stood rooted to the spot, the tray still in her hand, her tired eyes meeting his across the space. He stopped a few feet from her, his gaze intense. He wasn't looking at a bald waitress. He was looking through the years, the uniform, the setting. He seemed to see the person she used to be, the person she still was beneath it all. Then he spoke again, his voice softer now, but carrying absolute gravity that silenced the entire room more effectively than any shout could have. Eleanor? He asked, his voice laced with disbelief and a profound respect that made the hairs on the back of everyone's neck stand up. Eleanor Vance? Is that truly you? Eleanor's composure, the carefully constructed wall she had built against the world, finally cracked. Her lips trembled slightly. She nodded, unable to speak, her eyes glistening. The general's face softened further. He extended a hand, not for a handshake, but a gesture of deep, personal connection. Master Sergeant Vance, he said, his voice now a near whisper, but somehow filling the room. He used her rank, her true rank, the one she had earned with blood and sweat and unimaginable courage. He didn't say Eleanor the waitress, or the bald lady, he said Master Sergeant Vance. The title hung in the air, heavy with unspoken history. Liam, the young man in uniform, looked from the general to Eleanor, his eyes wide with astonishment. Mark, the manager's jaw dropped. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with dawning horror. The customers leaned forward, straining to hear, piecing together the impossible scene unfolding before them. Sir, Eleanor finally managed, her voice raspy, barely audible. The general didn't wait. He turned, sweeping his gaze across the frozen faces of the staff and customers. His eyes landed on Sarah and Kevin, then on Mark. The warmth in his expression evaporated, replaced by stern disapproval. Master Sergeant Vance, he said, turning back to Eleanor, his voice regaining its powerful resonance. Was one of the finest combat medics this country has ever produced. He didn't stop there. The words poured out, each one a hammer blow shattering the cheap facade the diner staff had built around Eleanor. She served 3 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, the general stated, his voice clear and strong. She risked her life, repeatedly under enemy fire, to save the lives of her fellow soldiers. Do you know what a combat medic does in a firefight? They run towards the bullets, not away. They carry no weapon, only their medical bag and unimaginable courage. He gestured towards Eleanor. This woman, standing here in this diner uniform, has patches on her medical bag that represent lives she saved, American lives, coalition lives, even enemy lives. She received the Silver Star for pulling 7 wounded soldiers out of a collapsed building under intense mortar fire after her own vehicle was hit. The Purple Heart, twice. The Bronze Star with V device for valor. She stayed with her unit through explosions that would have sent lesser individuals fleeing, treating the wounded, stabilizing the dying, making sure everyone who could be saved had a fighting chance. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The teenagers at the booth were now pale, staring at Eleanor with a mixture of awe and shame. Sarah looked like she might faint. Kevin was frozen, his smirk replaced by terror. Mark, the manager, seemed to shrink into himself. The general's voice dropped slightly, becoming intensely personal. And she is fighting another battle now, he said, his gaze fixed on Eleanor's bald head, but speaking to everyone in the room. A personal battle that requires immense strength and dignity. Yet, instead of the respect and gratitude she has earned 1,000 times over from a nation she bled for, she is met with this. His eyes swept over the staff again, his disapproval palpable. Mockery? Dismissal? Treating her like she is less than. He took a step closer to Mark. Manager, he said, his tone cutting like ice. Do you have any idea who you have working for you? Do you understand the caliber of human being who walks these floors every day, choosing to serve coffee after serving her country with such distinction? Mark stammered, "Yes, sir, I had no idea." She never said anything. The general's gaze was unwavering. Of course she didn't, he said, glancing back at Eleanor with profound respect. Master Sergeant Vance never sought recognition. Her service was not for glory, but for duty, for honor, for the soldiers by her side. She is the epitome of humility. He turned fully to face the staff and customers, a commanding presence that demanded attention. Let this be a lesson to all of you, the general stated, his voice booming slightly now, carrying the authority of his rank and the moral weight of the situation. You see a bald head, a tired face, a simple uniform. You see weakness, age, insignificance. But what you should see is strength forged in unimaginable hardship. You should see a hero who put her life on the line so you could live yours in safety. You should see a woman fighting a private war with courage that eclipses anything you will ever face in this comfortable diner. You should see dignity, resilience, and the quiet power of true character. He looked pointedly at Sarah and Kevin. Your petty remarks, your snickering, your complete lack of empathy or respect. It is not just rude. It is an insult to the sacrifices made by people like Eleanor Vance. It is an insult to the uniform she once wore. It is an insult to the very idea of honor. Sarah was openly weeping now, her face buried in her hands. Kevin looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. The teenagers were utterly silent, their earlier bravado shattered. Liam, the young man in uniform, stood taller, looking at Eleanor with newfound awe and pride. He was witnessing something important, a living lesson in true leadership and quiet heroism. The general then did something unexpected. He turned back to Eleanor, extended his hand again, palm up, in a gesture of deep respect, almost like presenting something precious. Master Sergeant Vance, he said, his voice gentle once more. It is an honor to see you again. Truly, an honor. Eleanor, her eyes still wet, finally let the tray clatter softly onto a nearby counter. She looked at the general, at Liam, at the stunned faces around her. A small, tired smile touched her lips. General Peterson, she acknowledged softly. finally recognizing the face of the man who had just laid bare her hidden life. "It's good to see you too, sir," the general nodded, a flicker of concern crossing his face again as he looked at her. Are you getting the care you need, Eleanor?" he asked, his voice lower, clearly worried about her health. She gave another small nod. "I am, sir. Just taking it one day at a time." He looked at Mark the manager, his stern expression returning. "Mr. Mark," the general said, "I expect to hear that Master Sergeant Vance is being treated with the utmost respect and consideration she deserves here. Do I make myself clear?" Mark, trembling slightly, nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. I am so deeply sorry, Eleanor. I had no idea." Sarah, still crying, choked out, "I'm sorry, Eleanor. I'm so sorry." Kevin mumbled apologies, his eyes glued to the floor. The shift in atmosphere was instantaneous and absolute. The quiet dignity Eleanor had always possessed was now visible, undeniable, amplified by the general's powerful words. The invisibility cloak was lifted, revealing the hero beneath. General Peterson spent a few more quiet moments talking to Eleanor, catching up briefly, expressing genuine concern for her health. He even pulled a small, worn, metal object from his pocket, a challenge coin, and pressed it into her hand, a silent acknowledgement of their shared history and her continued fight. It was a gesture of profound respect, a bond between comrades. He then nodded to Liam, who walked over, stood respectfully before Eleanor, and offered her a crisp, perfect salute. "Master Sergeant Vance," he said, his young voice filled with admiration. "It is an honor." Eleanor's eyes welled up again, and she gave him a gentle, acknowledging nod. It was a moment of silent connection across generations, a passing of the torch of respect. The general and Liam eventually left, the hushed reverence in the diner following them out the door. But the silence they left behind was different. It was no longer the silence of indifference or dismissal, but the silence of shock, shame, and burgeoning respect. Mark, still looking shell-shocked, immediately went to Eleanor. "Eleanor, I don't know what to say. You're ours. Your section. Anything you need. We'll make this right." He sounded genuinely shaken, the realization of his misjudgment hitting him hard. Sarah approached cautiously, her face blotchy from crying. "Eleanor, I was awful. I'm so ashamed. Please, can you forgive me?" Kevin also mumbled his apologies. Eleanor looked at them, her expression calm now. She didn't gloat, didn't berate them. That wasn't her way. "Just do your job," she said quietly to Mark. To Sarah and Kevin, she simply nodded. "Learn from this," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of experience. "Not everyone's story is on the surface." The daily grind was never quite the same after that day. The whispers stopped. The snickering vanished. Eleanor Vance was no longer just the old, bald waitress. She was Master Sergeant Vance. The staff treated her with deference, offering to help her, ensuring she had the best tables. Customers who had witnessed the scene sometimes approached her booth awkwardly, thanking her for her service, their eyes holding the awe the general had inspired. Some regulars, learning the story, started a small collection to help with her medical bills, which she accepted with quiet gratitude. Mark the manager ensured she had days off when she needed them, a complete reversal of his previous behavior. Sarah and Kevin, humbled and taught a harsh lesson, went out of their way to be kind and helpful, their previous arrogance replaced by a newfound humility. They had seen a glimpse of the world beyond their own small bubble, a world where true heroes walked among them, often hidden in plain sight. Eleanor continued to work, moving a little slower than she used to, but with the same quiet determination. The baldness was still there, a visible sign of her ongoing battle, but now, instead of attracting mockery, it seemed to radiate an invisible aura of strength and resilience. People looked at her differently. They saw not a weakness but a warrior. The dignity she had always carried internally was now reflected in the eyes of those around her. The story of Master Sergeant Vance in the diner spread, a local legend, a reminder to look deeper, to never judge a book by its cover, or a hero by their uniform of the day. Eleanor Vance, the humble waitress, had shown them that the greatest strength, the most profound courage, and the most deserving honor often resides in the quietest of souls, fighting battles seen and unseen, asking for nothing but the simple dignity they have already earned 1,000 times over. This is a story about looking past appearances, about the quiet strength of those who have served and sacrificed, and about the power of a single moment of recognition to change everything. Eleanor Vance's story at the Daily Grind is a powerful reminder that heroism isn't always marked by fanfare, but often by quiet endurance and unwavering dignity in the face of adversity and ignorance. It is a testament to the fact that true respect must be earned, but once recognized, it should be given freely and unconditionally. Remember the Eleanors of the world, hidden in plain sight, carrying burdens and histories you cannot imagine. Treat everyone with kindness, for you never know the battles they have fought or the heroes they truly are. If the story moved you and you believe in honoring those who have served, please subscribe to the channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, respect is not just earned. It must also be given. Subscribe to my channel for more stories of hidden strength and unexpected heroes.